Genuine pleasure to welcome you to our launch event for Nova, the 11th generation of our industry-leading PAN-OS. With the volume and complexity of the threats your organizations face rising exponentially, securing your network has never been more important, and in some ways, more difficult. At Palo Alto Networks, we've been focused on transforming how networks are secured by marrying security and simplicity in ways never before possible. So we're excited to introduce you to Nova, featuring several innovations to help your organization stop the most complex and evasive zero-day attacks, simplify the security architecture, and deploy zero trust security everywhere your network reaches. Today, you'll hear from industry experts about the threats we face and why network security powered by PAN-OS 11 is the way forward when it comes to stopping them in real time. You'll hear from product experts about stopping zero-day threats with advanced wildfire and enhancements to our groundbreaking advanced threat prevention. You'll learn how to simplify your security architecture with new support for web proxy and next-gen CASB on your next-gen firewall. And seamlessly protecting your network and IoT devices with capabilities that take you beyond visibility to true zero trust security. And of course, the best keeps getting better with 5 new next-gen firewalls to make your cybersecurity foundation stronger than ever before. And remember, this is all about you and improving your network security. So be sure to submit any questions you may have throughout the event, and our experts will answer them as we go. So let's kick things off with a fireside chat featuring Senior Vice President for Cyber Consulting and Threat Intelligence here at Palo Alto Networks, Wendy Whitmore, and Chris Krebs, former Director of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Wendy and Chris will be taking a closer look at the evolution of today's threat landscape and how the industry should respond. Wendy, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Wendy Whitmore, and I lead our Unit 42 team here at Palo Alto Networks. I'm here today to talk to you about the threat landscape, and in particular, some of the recent shifts that we've seen related to attackers becoming more efficient and actually using more comprehensive techniques to attack their targets. What we're seeing today is attackers using every angle of a potential attack vector to get the job done. So it really seems like what's old is actually pretty new again. I think there are a few reasons that we're seeing this shift, and I'm going to go through a few of those with you before I turn it over to our special guest today. So first, I think the adoption of remote work and then certainly the complexity of organizations moving to the cloud has really made it more challenging for organizations to defend this growing attack surface. That's coupled with not only defending their attack surface, but then this ever-growing expanse of open source vulnerabilities and general vulnerabilities related to the supply chain makes it really difficult to be able to continually defend against this ever-increasing attack vector. And keep in mind that this is really coupled with what's going on in the world. So everything from the war going on in Russia, Ukraine, and ransomware attacks, which are happening on a near daily basis, really makes it a great backdrop for our cyber threat attackers, right? They are leveraging that to fade into the background and really leverage that chaos to continue to successfully conduct attacks. Coupled with that, I think, is greater availability of tools than we've really ever seen before. So we've seen increase in usage of Cobalt Strike, for example, which is a tool that's been around for ages, is actually up in terms of its usage 73% year over year. And then there are new tools like BrutRatel, which was discovered in 2002, being used in the wild, actually discovered by the Unit 42 Threat Intelligence team. And it's an attack tool that is similar in nature to Cobalt Strike, but actually even more evasive and with more capabilities. So all of this is also in conjunction then with the fact that there's a dynamic nature of attack groups. So everything from ransomware attackers switching teams, switching tool sets, to new attack groups on the market like Lapsus Group, who are leveraging social engineering in ways that become really difficult for enterprise organizations to evade. So all that said, I think attack defense is a real challenge today. And to help us really understand this drastic shift, I'd like to welcome Chris Krebs, who is the former director of CISA and a CBS News contributor. So Chris is very widely known, and in particular for covering really serious, really timely issues, but in a way that makes it very relatable and translating complex business problems into understandable terms in order to help organizations really become more resilient and be able to more effectively defend their organizations. So welcome and thank you for joining us today, Chris.
Hey, Wendy, thanks for having me today.
You are so welcome. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective on, on what we just talked about in terms of the shift in the threat landscape. I think you have a very interesting background that lends itself to having a unique view into this. So, in your words, how are organizations being impacted by this shift in attacker activity?
Well, Wendy, I think in your intro, you laid it out just right, in that there's this broader set of environmental factors that are contributing to what certainly feels kind of like a Wild West moment out there. And it's not just the bad guys, because the bad guys don't exist in a vacuum. There are conditions that enable their activities, and some of those are intentional and some things they drive, but there are other things that we drive as users, as the industries and sectors and companies and organizations that use the stuff, that they're taking advantage of, that they're organically shifting and adapting to. And I talked about this in my talk out at Black Hat last summer in Vegas, where I kind of painted 4 different vectors or elements that are contributing to this really interesting collision of geopolitics and technology. And starting right there, the first element, it's the technology we use, and it's the things that really drive businesses. Partially also the fact that almost every organization right now is a technology company first and foremost. You're no longer just a bank. You're no longer just an automobile manufacturer. I mean, think about Tesla. Tesla is a software company first and foremost. Now you're seeing other organizations like BMW and Mercedes selling products within the vehicle that are software enabled, like heated seats. And so organizations are rapidly integrating technologies into their business strategies to capture market share going forward. Now, the problem with that approach is that the underlying technologies that we're baking into these radical digital transformation shifts are unfortunately probably only about as secure as they need to be. And until something changes in that balance, or that, kind of across the balance sheet of, is it giving us the productivity advantages and the efficiencies we want, vice the insecurities? Now, yes, we see activity, we see breaches, we see incidents every single day, but we're not seeing those colonial pipelines every day or every week. And we're certainly not seeing a loss of life type of events or incidents. I think those are the sorts of events that I think we would need to see before the underlying technologies that we're so reliant upon really starting to change the name. But as you laid out, we are still just dramatically pulling them in to new use cases. And I think a lot of this was driven by COVID and the digital transformation and the shift to the cloud that so many organizations made in the 2020 into 2021 timeframe, as they were just trying to figure out, how do we stay afloat? How do we keep our workforce productive yet healthy? And so in the meantime, we're kind of outsourcing all these traditional business operations functions like payroll and HR. We're now shifting them to a software as a service solution. And in the meantime, we're kind of passing a blank check of trust along with it. Do we really know how effective their security is? And so really what I'm trying to paint the picture of here is that the attack surface and the opportunity space for the bad guys has only gotten larger over the last several years. And unfortunately, the government, whether it's here in the US or elsewhere, they're still struggling to kind of keep up and make the right market interventions from a regulatory perspective, from a other sort of requirement perspective. Instead they're taking small steps, but again, the threat landscape and the threat actor space is so radically moving so quickly. And then I think the third element after the technology, the government piece, and before I get to the bad actors, is the people. Any way you cut it, this technology, whether it's software or hardware, doesn't write itself yet. We'll see what happens with AI and Chat GPT and all that.
Right.
But look, it's someone's still there that's writing the code, that's testing, that's deploying, that's maintaining the operations, whether it's inside a big, large headquarters, or it's out in the field when we're talking about operational technology. So there's a human aspect here. And again, adversaries are understanding that humans are in critical points of influence, and that they can be turned. I mean, we see what happened with some of the criminal groups in Lapsus over the last year, where that insider risk, and we see other nation state intelligence services really focusing on close access operations and in the workforce. Not to mention the fact that we continue to talk about the lack of highly skilled people that we need to bring in to the cybersecurity community. And then beyond all that, we also have our leadership. Our leadership is, I think, and just like the government struggling a little bit, really trying to understand what the priorities are, what the investments are. Now, the good news here, I think, is that as every day goes by, we have a more tech savvy, a more tech native workforce in place. And so if there's anywhere that I'm really optimistic and hopeful, it is, frankly, it's on the workforce. Now, here's to kind of the punchline in your original question of the bad guys. Why are the threat actors so prevalent, so active, and so successful right now? Well, I think historically we've talked about, as I mentioned, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, but those are just the established players that we've caught, that we've stopped in a lot of cases. The unfortunate reality is that due to that attack surface I talked about earlier, just about every country on the face of this earth right now is developing some sort of offensive security capability. We're seeing it step up in reporting Unit 42 has done, and that other security vendors have done. Talking about Southeast Asian adversaries, we're seeing ransomware and cyber criminal groups run rampant throughout South America. And I think really the takeaway here is that there is almost a never-ending, sure, it's probably quantifiable, but it certainly feels like there's a never-ending set of targets for actors and for actors to go after. And what that creates a pull factor, particularly on the criminal side. And this kind of gets me to my larger point of every organization on the face of the earth really has to baseline against cyber criminals. If you're online, if you have some sort of digital offering or you have a digital dependency like email, then you're on the playing field for these guys. And if you have two nickels to rub together, they're going to come after you. And I think the days of big game hunting, the colonial pipelines, the tens of 20 million or so in terms of a ransom or things on that magnitude or scale, I think we're going to see more actors coming in going after those smaller level purses. And so what this is creating is a really large and ever expanding seemingly set of threat actors that are coming in for purely financial purposes, and it's across the age range. There's no driver's license equivalent here, barrier to entry to the market. So my expectation is that they're going to keep coming. They're going to keep coming until we have really effective deterrences in place, which is possible. I truly think that it's possible for industry, groups like Palo Alto, and your different working groups and things like Unit 42, working with law enforcement, working with the intelligence community, working with my old agency, CISA, to share information on a rapid basis to understand what those threats are and to deploy the appropriate countermeasures. So it's a really active space. The pull factors are there. The underlying technology is still insecure, and it will remain that way because I don't see a lot of really market interventions happening. So I think everyone watching needs to keep in mind that, hey, we're on the playing field, but there are things we can do to mitigate our risk, to limit our exposure. And I really like thinking about how do you cram down on the blast radius when you do have an event, and make sure a bad day doesn't turn into a worse day.
Yeah, Chris, I couldn't agree with you more. I like how you also highlighted, so many things, right? I could pull so many areas out of what you talked about. One of them, though, I think is when you talk about the barrier to entry, and with the attackers, it's still very low. It's grossly disproportionate in terms of the limited costs it may take an attacker to conduct an attack versus an enterprise organization to defend against everyone, as you said, from the Russian military to cyber criminals that are 14-year-olds living in Brazil and operating off of their parents' infrastructure. I think one of the things that has really changed in the past year that I've seen progress, and in large part due to your former agency, is this increased threat information sharing between not only public and private partnerships, but also just across organizations like ours who may have not shared information previously with competitors as much as we do now. Russia and Ukraine has made that just imminently possible, and something that we're doing on an hourly basis at this point. So I'm excited to see that. I'm curious from your perspective, though, what are you seeing as the industry's response to all of these challenges that you've laid out?
Well, one of the things is exactly what you just said on information sharing. And this is really every organization's superpower. And it's something that even I run a small consulting service. We're only about 30 people and we've got a dozen or so clients, but we have experience and data from working with our clients. And even at that scale, you take it all the way out to the largest banks. Your superpower is the data that you have access to. You can look back and see what are the trends that we've had across our networks in the last 30 days, in the last 6 months, what's rising, what's fading. Those are the sorts of things that allow you to make strategic decisions going forward. But it can also be something that you share with a third party, that you share with CISA, that you share with an information sharing and analysis center, that you share with your partner saying, hey, look, we got this, you guys might want to keep an eye out. It's really one of the most cost-effective ways to extend the defensive umbrella outside of your own organization, because what tends to happen is good information sharing tends to beget more good information sharing, and so that flow comes back both ways. Beyond the information sharing piece, which is a little cliche in DC these days, but I do think operationally it's working, and we're almost in kind of a golden era of information sharing. We're also seeing teams that are really trying to understand what's the right strategy. And this is one of those, again, cliche terms that comes up about zero trust. But I think what people are starting to realize after about a year and a half or two of the zero trust buzzwords in marketing is that there's a framework. Zero trust is not, it's not an outcome you're trying to achieve. It's a journey, right? And yeah. I like some of the framing that's coming out of the U.S. government of the pillars. CISA developed this. It's all about identity. It's about device. It's about network. It's about application and cloud workloads. And it's about the data. And if you can orient and architect your strategy around those 4 pillars combined with good governance, then I think you have a successful approach to managing not just today's threats, but expecting tomorrow's threats. And this goes, again, back to some of those challenges organizations are seeing, this shift to cloud. How do you manage identity in the cloud? It's a completely different approach than if you're managing an on-premises Exchange and Active Directory for us. It's completely different. So these sorts of updated approaches and trust-based, principle-based approaches to security are at the top of the list. And we're also seeing this, what happens every time, that kind of organic reaction of, well, we need more tools. We need more tools. Go get more tools. And I think that is actually starting to catch up with organizations a little bit. I'm seeing organizations I'll walk into that have 3 different EDR solutions, some that they've had on contract for 4 years, others that they're piloting. And I think what needs to happen, and I'm seeing this in government, I'm seeing it in industry, is a simplification of the tech stack, horizontally integrating your tech stack. And I think out in the market, we're seeing, again, Palo Alto is a great example of this, of that horizontal integration and consolidation. And due to the economic conditions, there are going to be plenty of buying opportunities out there in the market. But it's happening regardless of where you are. And so this is what kind of one of those things that I think organizations should be looking at is I don't need that silver bullet or that one-off. I need to be working with a partner that I can achieve as close to single pane of glass, or at least integrated partnerships. And I think that's the third thing, is we're seeing a lot of interesting partnerships between organizations that 3 or 4 years ago you never imagined these sorts of companies working together. But they see it, they're doing it because their customers are demanding it, that you have to work together collaboratively out there in the to make sure that you stave off this wild west as much as possible. So I think, again, there are a few simple approaches that organizations are taking. Those that are overthinking it tend to tend to not be as successful. I guess the last piece I'd add here is we're really seeing a tightness develop in a good way between the board, the C-suite, and the information security team. Whether you have a chief information security officer, or maybe you just have an IT security team, or just an IT team that has security responsibilities, that leadership engagement is absolutely critical to success. Because I don't care how good you are as a security leader, if the business unit doesn't know that the executives have your back, and when you start having to make those trade-offs on a product or security, you're never going to win. So the best CISO, if they don't have the CEO or the board support, then it's almost a hopeless mission. So we are seeing executives, CEOs, and boards really pick up and carry cybersecurity across the organization as a cultural thing.
Oh, Chris, I'm excited to hear you say that. We're certainly seeing that as well, right? From a Unit 42 perspective, we get to work with a lot of executives at our client sites. And so we're seeing more of that integration, but I think no doubt that needs to continue even more so, right? No adversarial relationships between CISOs and the board, for example, but really those being collaborative in nature and looking to achieve and drive outcomes moving forward. So I'm excited to hear you say that. I'm curious.
Well, I think there are a couple driving factors here, though, right? I mean, Colonial Pipeline and JBS were real wake-up calls, and I think the unfortunate truth is that ransomware was not new in the summer of 2021. We had seen schools, state and local colleges, or state and local government agencies, hospitals getting just whacked by ransomware, but it really took you hit the capital centers of the U.S. economy, and then you take gasoline away from people in the middle of summer, right before beach season, and that wakes people up. So I think particularly for boards, Colonial Pipeline was a big wake up. But then of course the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the Shields Up campaign that CISA and others really pushed. Again, that brought once again to the forefront and top of mind for organizations that geopolitical issues are real and that cyber offensive operations are a key element of exerting geopolitical force. And so the last, again, year and a half, 2 years has been a real wake-up call for executives. And so it's, I was in a almost a little bit of a lull period when I was in CISA, and now we're in a hotter period. But look, when you have a crisis, that's when you can really affect change. I think that's one thing every organization needs to keep in mind right now is don't let a good crisis go to waste. Really start driving your strategic priorities right now when you have your leadership's attention and you think you can get through some of your priorities.
Yeah, I love that advice. I want to circle back to one of your comments earlier about you've brought up Colonial Pipeline a couple times. And, I want to shift into the future of the threat landscape. And I think that's a good place to start because, when we look at that attack, we, I think as a defense community can all agree that those attackers likely did not want to cause the amount of disruption, right? That they did draw the attention of the US government, have as many organizations and agencies involved it has a number of outcomes, right? In terms of disrupting their infrastructure, their ability to conduct attacks. And we've seen ransomware attackers, among others, be really disrupted. And I mentioned changing teams, changing infrastructure. And so, while I think that that's great that there are all these disruptive opportunities, that also means that organizations need to continually shift as these attackers adopt new methods for attacking. So, I want to get into your thoughts on how do you anticipate the threat landscape evolving from here?
Yeah, look, I don't think the cyber criminal ecosystem is going anywhere. In fact, I think based on its historical success, at least to date, you may see it get even more professionalized. And I think what in part that means is that organized crime operations in Eastern Europe and in Russia and even Latin America may start expanding their portfolios and move into cybercrime. It's, we talked about it, really low barrier to entry. The returns are exceedingly high. And you can churn through a workforce pretty quickly. We'll see if that plays out, but it makes sense to me from an evolution and maturation perspective. But anyway, you cut it. Cybercrime's here to stay. One interesting aspect is that we are seeing a bit of a not necessarily a pivot away from ransomware, but a diversification in cybercrime to exclude extortion, right? And so it's you're not necessarily encrypting the network, but you're taking data and you're saying we're going to release it. We're going to put it on this wall of shame. And you think about it from a software engineering perspective, it's a lot easier for the bad guy because they don't have to worry about developing any sort of encryption tool or a decryptor that probably didn't work anyway. Instead, they just take the data, they run with it. I think an interesting, maybe wrinkle going forward of the extortion model is the claim you have their data, but not really have their data, and then try to. I've seen this already. It starts moving us into a bit of a broader disinformation conversation, which I think is another thing that we need to be thinking about from an advanced actor perspective. We saw this in Ukraine, where the GRU and other security service out of Russia were trying to get access to sensitive information, social media profiles of important VIPs, so they could compromise, they could pop the accounts, and then start pushing their own messages and narratives or release embarrassing information. And this is really what we're seeing, probably a more of a magnification of historical Russian intelligence service operations, where they combine cyber with information operations for psychological impact. So those are the sorts of things where it's not just about, oh boy, somebody got my PII, this is a regulatory reporting moment. It's now about, wait a second, what sort of sensitive information might they have gotten access to that could be embarrassing, not just for us, but for some of our clients. And we saw this again down in Australia with some of the medical information, including psychological and mental health records. So I see that wrinkle also getting baked into the cybercrime space. More broadly, when you go back to that traditional Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, I think Russia is going to be a continually destabilized state, turns them into a bit of a rogue, unpredictable country. We all know they have capabilities. We're still kind of scratching our head on why they weren't more flashy and flamboyant with some of their cyber operations. But look, this war's not over. And as Russia continues to feel pressure, they will expand the tools they use outside of Ukraine. So I would keep an eye on the kind of spillover effect into Eastern Europe, or if something goes significantly in Ukraine's favor, you never know what a Russian security service or proxy actor, including some of those ransomware actors that I've long felt were operating at least with the tacit or implicit approval of the Kremlin and some of the security operations. The last thing I'd point out is that keep an eye on what's happening between China and the West. And this, we're hearing a lot about deglobalization. I'm not sure economically we're seeing deglobalization, but we're certainly seeing political deglobalization. And I think this is where every security practitioner right now needs to keep in mind that there are a broader set of forces at play where we are just a slice of the pie in the InfoSec community. And unfortunately, when tensions go hot in that geopolitical space, cyber is one of the available tools that are below conflict. And you hear a lot of talk about, is China going to invade Taiwan, and is it going to be by 2027 or 2030? Look, those are important conversations for foreign policy and defense experts, but there's a lot of badness that can happen below that line of kinetic and physical invasion of Taiwan. And a lot of that does include espionage. It includes supply chain, software supply chain, and other sorts of compromises to affect the objectives they want. So I think that, again, China and the geopolitical tensions increasing, particularly what looks like to be a fairly anti-People's Republic of China Congress that's coming into session, right about now. That is going to be an increased area of conflict. And unfortunately, the Chinese have numbers. The People's Republic of China and their various security services have significant numbers, and they're persistent, and they go to work every single day. They're looking to get into your networks. And that's kind of probably the last takeaway, is that every organization needs to be thinking about not just their product, not just about their competition and their total addressable market. You also need to be thinking about how others might take advantage of you for their own objectives, and whether it's for economic espionage, whether it's for industrial, not just industrial espionage, but government espionage and spying. Everyone's got something that might be important.
Yeah, Chris, thank you. It was really enjoyable to get to hear your perspective. I think we could probably talk all day, and I'm sure our audience would love to hear more of your insights. But certainly, I think very relevant to how you tied it back to, ability to detect actions and not only be focused on what our competitors might be doing in a traditional business landscape, but what are our adversaries doing as well. So we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wendy.
Next, we'll turn it over to Anand, who's going to walk us through the details on the latest PAN-OS Nova launch announcement.
We heard from Wendy and Chris about how the threat landscape is evolving. Put simply, attacks are moving fast and we need to move faster. And as Chris mentioned, an organization's response to new threats cannot be to add one more solution or one more vendor into your security stack. That approach serves to make your security architecture more and more complex and costly to manage. It also results in poor security outcomes. Our network security platform provides both best-in-class security and a platform approach to give you the best operational outcomes. At the core is PAN-OS 11.0 Nova, the newest release of our industry-leading PAN-OS software. We are very excited to bring Nova to you as it addresses three key aspects that help to keep you one step ahead of your adversaries. Nova delivers what you need to stop zero-day threats, simplify your security architecture, and most important, improve your security posture. Now, let's take a look at these new capabilities. First, to stop more zero-day threats, we've introduced Advanced Wildfire. This new cloud-delivered security service is able to stop 26% more evasive malware that is missed by traditional sandboxes. Advanced Wildfire incorporates 15+ patented techniques and an expanded cloud infrastructure to stay hidden from advanced malware. Because we are hidden, the advanced malware detonates itself, and we are able to see it and to block it. We can deliver this protection in near real time across network, cloud, and endpoints. In addition, we are strengthening zero-day protection by adding new advanced cloud-delivered detections to our advanced threat prevention service. This builds on the inline deep learning capabilities first introduced in PAN-OS 10.2 Nebula and reimagines the intrusion prevention system with industry-first inline capabilities for stopping zero-day injections. Now we're able to stop 60% more zero-day injection attacks compared to traditional IPS solutions. All of this in real time. Now, having the right tools to stop these threats is crucial, but equally important is the need for a simplified security architecture. If your architecture is complex, it's difficult to have visibility and prevent threats in all areas of your enterprise. With Nova, we've introduced natively integrated web proxy capabilities for next-generation firewall customers looking to migrate from legacy on-prem proxy solutions. With a single vendor to support firewall and proxy needs, you benefit from a single management platform, a consistent security across campus locations, branches, and mobile users. In addition, we're including all new SaaS Security Posture Management, or SSPM, in our next-generation CASB service to help find and to eliminate dangerous misconfigurations in 60+ enterprise SaaS applications. With this capability, you experience near real-time data protection, protecting your sensitive data in modern SaaS applications from compromised accounts and insider threats. Our third area of major enhancements in PAN-OS 11 Nova focuses on reducing misconfigurations to deliver improved and an enhanced security posture. Our AI Ops for NG firewall capability, first introduced last year, is now even more proactive. Even before any changes are committed to the firewalls, AI operations guards against violations of best practices. It also enables remediations of inefficiencies in your security policies. AI Ops is making a big difference already to our customers, processing 29 billion metrics every single month across over 50,000 firewalls. It also proactively shares 24,000 misconfigurations and other issues for resolution every month. In addition to Nova, we're excited to introduce 5 new next-generation firewalls. Super excited. For the data center, we now have our PA5440, which is the highest performing fixed form factor in 2 rack units. This platform increases the performance of the PA5400 series up to 93 gigabits per second of app ID throughput, a 2 times increase over a PA5260, our Gen 3 platforms. For large enterprise branches and small campuses, we've announced the PA1400 series, with 2 models delivering 10 gigabits per second and 6.6 gigabits per second of app ID performance. The PA1400 series offers 7 times the session capacity compared to the previous generation, the PA800 series. This new PA1400 series includes support for power over Ethernet, virtual systems, high-speed 5G copper ports, and fiber ports. We're also expanding our PA400 series with the introduction of 2 new firewalls, the PA445 and the PA415. These platforms bring the flexibility of fiber and power over Ethernet ports to distributed enterprises and small and medium businesses. Altogether, PAN-OS 11.0 Nova and our new next-generation firewalls incorporates more than 50 innovations and updates, the most exciting release we've had so far. The cutting-edge software of Nova powers our network security platform, providing an integrated approach that lets you outpace the ever-evolving threats. With Palo Alto Networks, you can secure any user and any application, no matter where the application lives, no matter where the user resides. We give your users a consistent experience, empower your operations teams to keep your organizations one step ahead of the attackers. I've given you a high-level view of what our new innovations can do. Next, you'll hear from several of our product experts who will do a deeper dive into what we've announced.
Today's hybrid workforces rely on cloud-based software as a service apps to collaborate and conduct business from anywhere. At corporate offices, branch offices, from their home, or on the road. SaaS apps pose an increased risk to the organization as data is increasingly uploaded, created, and shared in the cloud, often carelessly overshared. Enabling a hybrid workforce to work from anywhere means organizations must now manage and secure a hybrid network environment made of corporate, branch-based, and remote networks, and secure a myriad of applications and terabytes of data that employees need to quickly access to do their jobs. Today, organizations rely on hundreds of corporate SaaS apps, while thousands of unsanctioned SaaS apps are also available to the employees, and more are being created daily. While SaaS apps provide tremendous convenience and are key enablers in driving business continuity and productivity, their exploding growth creates security concerns that security teams must address. Conventional CASB solutions were built when the universe of apps was much smaller and more predictable, when data was more structured and simply stored on a handful of productivity apps like Office 365, Salesforce, and Box, and when cloud-based threats were less worrisome. Complex and disjointed from the network security stack, conventional CASBs are designed with limited and manual scalability for app visibility. They struggle to keep pace with the volume and scale of sensitive data and the new ways of exchanging confidential information via unstructured conversations on modern collaboration apps, offering poor security and ineffective prevention against threats coming in and data leaking out. Palo Alto Networks is once again elevating the state of cloud-delivered security with the industry's only next-generation CASB that automatically keeps pace with the SaaS explosion. Fully integrated into our Prisma SASE framework, the industry's most complete cloud-delivered security platform, Next-Gen CASB helps today's businesses enable the safe adoption of SaaS by automatically securing new applications, accurately identifying and protecting sensitive data in real time everywhere, even on modern collaboration apps, and stopping all known and unknown threats with best-in-class threat detection and prevention. Take active control of your SaaS environments in a way that is comprehensive, complete, and consistent enough to keep all your data, applications, and users secure and protected from all threats. Only Palo Alto Networks' Next-Gen CASB can provide a simpler, integrated, and updated approach to CASB that is designed to align with the changing needs of the modern enterprise. For more information, please contact us today.
Today's threat landscape has evolved. Vulnerabilities are increasing as attacks are becoming more sophisticated and dynamic. Every day, adversaries release hundreds of thousands of new threats, typically leveraging automation and evasion techniques to avoid detection. With access to sophisticated tools, off-the-shelf attack kits, and versions of popular red team tools like Cobalt Strike, threat actors have dramatically improved the speed and success of their attacks. These tools also make it easier than ever for attackers to create completely customizable command and control channels that cannot be stopped with traditional security defenses. It's time for a new approach. Palo Alto Networks' Advanced Threat Prevention builds on our existing best-in-class capabilities to bring the first major innovation to IPS in years, stopping unknown command and control attacks in real time. Powered by custom patent-pending deep learning models trained on millions of data points, Advanced Threat Prevention inspects all traffic regardless of port, protocol, or encryption. It detects known, unknown, and evasive C2 threats. And using the speed and scale of the cloud with new processing technology, it does it all in line in milliseconds, delivering prevention in real time. Advanced Threat Prevention delivers 96% prevention of web-based Cobalt Strike C2 and 48% more detection of evasive and unknown C2 over other leading IPS solutions, all while providing the same best-in-class capabilities as Palo Alto Networks' industry-leading threat prevention. Today's cyber attacks use advanced techniques. Your cybersecurity platform should too. When you're ready to protect your network without hindering business productivity or increasing workloads for security teams, Palo Alto's cloud-delivered Advanced Threat Prevention provides the real-time, inline protection you need to secure your organization from even the most advanced and invasive threats. To learn more about Advanced Threat Prevention, please contact us today.
Welcome. I'm Ratnesh Saxena, Senior Director of Product Management at Palo Alto Networks. Today, you have the pleasure of listening in on a fireside chat with Rachel Toback, CEO and co-founder of Social Proof Security. Rachel is a friendly hacker. She travels all over the world, hacking organizations to find their weak spots. Rachel, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Rachel, the threat landscape is evolving faster than ever. Cliched. Threat actors are using sophisticated tools to their advantage. Everyone's a target. But what makes an ideal target?
It may surprise you to know that I can find most data points I need to hack you in 30 seconds alone. This is through a process that we call OSINT, Open Source Intelligence. And OSINT is often more simple than you might expect. It's as easy as searching through Instagram with a geotag to your company, finding a workstation in the background of a work anniversary photo, and determining the OS, the software, the version used on your machines in your office right now to tailor malware specifically for those individual machines in use.
30 seconds? I guess no selfies at work, right? So that's pretty impressive. What's the first step that a hacker takes before they start hacking an organization?
Sure, before we hack, we have to do our research. Otherwise, we quickly get caught. So I need to be armed with the knowledge of your systems, your tools, the relationships on your team, the internal lingo. It's even more than the OSINT that I just mentioned. This is the entire recon stage of social engineering. And this is the hacking of humans to gain access to money, data, or systems. I can find work relationships through LinkedIn that I can use in my impersonation. I can find workstation photos on Instagram, like I mentioned. And on social media, I often find unpatched work machines in the backgrounds of photos or BYOD, the bring your own device machines. They're out of date on the work network, and I can target those with known vulnerabilities. And many times, organizations are unaware that machines are unpatched, or there's just a lack of visibility about which devices are on their network with out-of-date software and operating systems. Now, if I can't find photos of unpatched machines to hack, the next step is often just to phish people within the organization. And when those people click a link in my malicious email, their browser and OS versions are returned to me. And I can tailor the malware to fit their out-of-date browser and operating system directly that way.
Yes, the recon phase is the most important phase of an attack. Now, isn't this all about the return on investment for an attacker to find the juiciest target? One would imagine that the attack methodology is unique for each target.
Yeah, well, the attack methodology is custom for every company and every target. We need to determine who we should pretend to be, and that is different for every single person at every organization. We need to figure out who you trust to get your job done, and those are the people we'll pretend to be to you. So for instance, if I know your colleague is named Allison, maybe I find that on LinkedIn, I may impersonate her to you and ask you something like, hey, Ratnesh, can you check out this document? I am not sure where the KPIs got to, and I just need to keep up to date on this for your project. And then in there is a malicious link for you to click on. Maybe that brings you to a credential harvesting site where I can steal your password and siphon out your MFA code to log in to, say, your cloud storage tool as you.
Absolutely. It could be as simple as, here's a file I'm sending to you. It has all the information that you need. Once I open it, I'm compromised. This is a pretext to compromise me. So what pretexts are we likely to see in 2023?
For sure. So a pretext is who we're pretending to be, right, when we're hacking. And it's more than just a lie. It's an entire background story. And we try to become that person to our target. So the pretexts that we've been seeing in the last few weeks and months fall into three main categories. We've been seeing attackers pretend to be IT support or help desk, customer support, and we've also seen an uptick in attackers pretending to be executives to their team members.
So what common attack methods are we seeing in the wild? We've heard a lot of buckets and repositories being compromised. Is that it?
So let's break down the three most common pretexts from late 2022, early 2023. So first, we have that IT support or help desk. This is the pretext and attack methodology used in the Twitter hack in 2020 and the 2022 Uber, Cloudflare, and Twilio hacks. These cybercriminals pretended to be IT support or a single sign-on tool with, say, an IT support add-on to an employee. So they did this either via email, text message, or phone call. They then encouraged that individual to reset their password to continue their ability to work remotely or use a necessary work tool, and sent them to a malicious URL that stole their password and MFA code. The only organization in that list that was able to withstand that particular pretext was Cloudflare. They detail in their blog that they had 3 employees actually click that malicious link and go forward, but because they use a hardware security key, a YubiKey, for their MFA, the attacker wasn't able to steal any MFA codes, and they were not able to gain access. Then we have the customer support attack method. This is often hitting individuals in their personal life, but on a device that still has work on it. An attacker may pretend to be from Dell, Microsoft, Apple, Geek Squad, and they'll spoof the customer support caller ID of that company. So they'll make it look like it's actually calling from that company. Then they'll trick that person into allowing the customer support agent to have remote access to fix a virus on their device. The cybercriminal is then able to take over the device and steal personal and work data by using common remote access tools, things that people are used to seeing. Finally, we have the most common executive impersonation attack methodology. The attacker finds a new hire at the company, usually on LinkedIn. They look up an executive at that company, and they impersonate that executive to that person. They then look on a data brokerage site to find the new hire's phone number or email address and send them a message asking for a favor from the executive. When the new hire replies, they ask for gift cards for a client or try to convince them to go to a malicious URL.
That's fascinating. There's so many ways in which one can actually get phished, attacked. So, Rachel, in the 2022 incident response report from Palo Alto Networks Unit 42, we have a statistic. It says within 15 minutes of a vulnerability being disclosed, the scans start for recon. An organization cannot possibly patch all of their systems immediately. So how has modern malware evolved to exploit these vulnerabilities?
Well, attackers are able to quickly, easily, and economically purchase malware and hacking tools from forums. That's not new, but what's new is just how little experience they need to be able to use them. And these hacking groups often develop malware quickly after a vulnerability is announced. So these cybercriminals don't always have loads of experience, but now they have step-by-step instructions for the hacking tools on a forum, and they can leverage scripts that use tools like Cobalt Strike, Metasploit, Sliver to evade detection tools. That way, they're hidden. They're able to exfiltrate data, they can get admin easily, or they can leverage a machine for something like crypto mining. In addition, there are also nation-state actors that target large organizations with latest malware or a zero-day that they purchase to use against a company, especially if that organization's threat model is elevated because their tools protect state secrets, for example.
This really makes our life very interesting. Not only are there sophisticated tools and techniques, but they're getting ubiquitous and easily accessible. A very small set of talented attackers develop sophisticated attacks, and they make it available to others. Is there an underground economy at play?
Yeah, this is pretty well documented on hacker forums, and a lot of it happens right out in the open. So we can watch people with their pseudonyms going back and forth, learning social engineering scripts, purchasing malware and ransomware as a service tools, and we can see how it's all disseminated. Many of these cyber criminals are young. We're talking 16, 17 years old. So young that the press couldn't print their name because of the law when they were cyber criminals, because they're minors and they couldn't print their name after the Twitter and Uber hack. These criminals work together in teams, or they pass on findings to other cyber criminals, sometimes splitting the stolen money, data, or access, but there is a lot of infighting there too.
It's fascinating. It's an entire economy. So what can companies do to protect themselves?
There's so much that companies can do to protect themselves. Sometimes people hear the way that I hack, or they hear stories in the news and they get all nihilistic thinking, there's so many actions that orgs have to do right. We can't even try. But I'm here to tell you that there are many things that you can do to make my life obnoxious when I'm hacking. First, I recommend being politely paranoid and have all human-facing team members update their people protocols to include at least 2 methods of communication to verify someone is who they say they are before taking an action on a request, like sending money, clicking or downloading, sending sensitive data. And this could be as simple as like a chat and an email in addition to just the email. You have to also train folks on security awareness so they have the why behind your protocols. But don't stop there because that's just one piece of the puzzle. You want to layer in your technical tools on top of your human protocol updates. Humans are fallible. They'll make mistakes. They need backup. So things like the right MFA for your threat model, password managers, security tools to detect abnormal actions by both people and technology at your organization, and you can catch attackers in the act. From 16-year-old folks who are trying to hack in with a phone call to nation-state actors who are developing something pretty serious.
Rachel, thank you. Who would have known that a 16-year-old could be the attacker? But this is a new reality. Sophistication at volume. Now that you've appropriately terrified the audience, let's talk about how Palo Alto Networks can help you protect yourselves.
Thank you for having me, Ratnesh. Great to chat with you.
Thank you, Rachel. We have seen how attackers are relentless and innovative. In an ideal world, there'd be no vulnerabilities. And if there were, they would all be patched immediately before exploits are created. However, this is not the case. Exploits target vulnerabilities via network-based methods or file-based methods, which make it necessary to have an intrusion prevention system and a file sandbox to be deployed. In the latest Nova PAN-OS 11.0 release, we're releasing two key capabilities that disrupt zero-day threats. With advanced threat prevention, we are using the power of the cloud combined with deep learning to stop zero-day injection-based attacks. With advanced Wildfire, we are detecting threats that traditional sandboxing methods are unable to detect. In the last release, we introduced advanced threat prevention, which introduced a cloud-based deep learning technique to prevent emerging threats. Traditionally, IPS solutions operate on signature matching. Advanced threat prevention augments the signature-based method with real-time inspection of network traffic to stop zero-day threats. In the last release, advanced threat prevention introduced the ability to detect C2, command and control activity, normally associated with Cobalt Strike payloads. In this release, Nova, we are going a step further. We are now able to detect zero-day injection attacks such as SQL injection. This is much earlier in the attack lifecycle. And we have some very impressive numbers to showcase, such as 90% prevention of injection attacks and 96% prevention of Cobalt Strike command and control. Now, what if an attack uses a file-based exploit? Traditional malware sandboxes typically look at tangible changes that happen during a malware runtime, such as a file change, a directory change, or registry changes. However, a lot of solutions fail short if the malware does all its malicious activity in memory, and there's no real tangible evidence to convict it. This is where Advanced Wildfire fills in the gap. Advanced Wildfire focuses on three main areas: stealth, malware detects its environment and makes sure that it does not run if it knows that it is being observed. Advanced Wildfire stays hidden from malware. Longer execution. Advanced Wildfire makes malware run as long as possible by making sure that it has all the resources it needs to execute. Memory inspection. Advanced Wildfire continuously inspects memory during malware execution to find that malicious activity. This is what we call IRMA, intelligent runtime memory analysis. With Advanced Wildfire, we are able to catch an additional 26% malware that would have been otherwise missed by traditional methods. Advanced Wildfire introduces net new parallel infrastructure to enable this reanalysis of files that would otherwise have been marked as benign. Thank you for your interest in the latest Nova PAN-OS 11.0 release from Palo Alto Networks. Please contact your Palo Alto sales team to try out these new capabilities. Remember that with all the innovation that Palo Alto Networks is bringing to the market, it is best positioned to be your security partner.
Welcome to the next evolution of network security from Palo Alto Networks with PAN-OS 11.0 Nova. Hi, I'm Taylor Edema, Vice President of Product Management for Internet Security here at Palo Alto Networks. I'm incredibly excited to share with you today some exciting new web security services available with PAN-OS Nova that can unlock a dramatic simplification of your network security stack. Now, before we get into the details, I'd like to begin with a very brief history of the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall to provide a little bit of context. When Palo Alto Networks pioneered the next generation firewall nearly 15 years ago, we started with a simple concept. The firewall was broken. Attacks were getting more sophisticated. The web was exploding. Applications were growing more complex. And the traditional approach of using ports and protocols to secure the network was failing. In response to this, the security industry created a series of new products to make up for this fact to try and plug these holes. Born were entire security product categories, including intrusion prevention systems, malware sandbox appliances, secure web gateways, CASB, and more. With this explosion of point products came added cost, complexity, and amazingly, still inferior security outcomes for users. But Palo Alto Networks took a different approach. We fixed the firewall with a next-generation firewall that worked. It restored the firewall's ability to control applications with App ID, prevented advanced threats and malware with integrated IPS and malware sandboxing, and secured web access with URL filtering. In fact, solving our enterprise customers' web security needs and replacing their legacy web gateways was one of our most popular use cases shortly after launching the next-gen firewall, a trend that has only accelerated over the years. And it's easy to see why. The security innovation of the platform over the years has been remarkable, providing organizations with a growing portfolio of best-in-industry security services, including advanced web security, DNS security, intrusion prevention, malware sandboxing, CASB, DLP, and more, all natively integrated with a single security policy that provides consistent security outcomes across the entire enterprise. And while the platform is exceptionally good at web security, it doesn't stop with the web. We apply the same security capabilities to all users, apps, data, locations, and across all form factors. With all the security innovation built on top of the same fundamental architecture over the years, the Palo Alto Networks next-generation firewall has been remarkably efficient in consolidating and displacing legacy point products within our customers' environments, including and especially legacy web proxies. But it turns out for certain types of organizations and network architectures, the decommissioning of legacy web proxies isn't always as straightforward. For some organizations, when the question of moving beyond legacy on-prem proxies comes up, I hear the same key challenges come up often. In these specific environments, the proxy architecture is extremely well entrenched and sticky. So what's exactly going on here? Well, first, some enterprise customers use proxies to help solve various security compliance requirements or regulations that make use of connection proxying to satisfy certain technical requirements. For example, proxy-based networks help enable no default route architectures commonly found in regulated environments. Second, displacing proxies can result in large architectural changes to the network in areas including authentication, DNS, addressing, and routing, all of which increases the complexity and risk of eliminating the web proxy. And finally, as enterprises look to adopt and deploy more of their security from the cloud, such as through the introduction of cloud-based SASE services, it becomes increasingly tenuous to maintain two separate web security infrastructures between legacy on-prem solutions and newer cloud-native services. This results in a more complex and costly multi-vendor architecture with disparate security capabilities delivering inconsistent management and security outcomes. Now, while all these challenges exist, what I've also heard from many organizations overwhelmingly is that they very much want to consolidate and simplify their network security stack, and also leverage Palo Alto Networks' security capabilities to secure web access, if only there were a way to also solve these proxy requirements. With PAN-OS 11.0 Nova, we're introducing web proxy support, natively integrated for the first time within our next-generation firewall. This significant evolution of the next-gen firewall enables organizations to significantly simplify and consolidate their security stack by eliminating legacy on-prem web proxies, while also significantly improving web security outcomes by consolidating web security functions, access, and decryption policy, and management, all to the Palo Alto Networks security platform. Because the new web proxy function is natively integrated with PAN-OS Nova, all of our industry-best cloud-delivered security services that are essential to securing the web are also available now in proxy mode, including advanced URL filtering, DNS security, advanced threat prevention, CASB, and DLP. The new web proxy function supports both explicit and transparent proxy modes to seamlessly match and displace existing proxy deployments like for like. An explicit proxy mode provides support for Kerberos and SAML for user authentication, enabling proxy operators to migrate at their own pace from on-prem Kerberos auth to a cloud IDP using SAML. Meanwhile, many organizations are beginning to introduce SASE into their architecture, delivering a security stack natively from the cloud, in particular for mobile users and remote networks. With the new web proxy support in PAN-OS Nova, when combined with the proxy support already available in Prisma Access, Palo Alto Networks is able to provide a completely integrated security platform that provides consistent web security in proxied environments across both on-prem locations as well as cloud-delivered locations. Just as with all other network security policy in the Palo Alto Networks security platform, web proxy policy and configuration is centrally managed through a single management platform for both the on-prem next-gen firewall and VM-series deployments and the Prisma Access deployments to ensure consistent policies and security outcomes for all users across all locations. Now I'd like to take a few minutes to zoom in on several of these security services that are natively integrated into the next-gen firewall and now with PAN-OS 11.0 Nova are available to secure web traffic in both proxy and non-proxy deployments of the firewall. At the core of Palo Alto Networks web security are our industry-leading cloud-delivered security services that provide protection from today's most sophisticated web attacks. First, advanced URL filtering provides best-in-class web protection with the industry's first real-time web protection powered by machine learning. Now, you can automatically detect and prevent new, malicious, and evasive web-based threats instantly. Advanced URL filtering introduces a cloud-delivered ML-powered web security engine to our network security platform, moving beyond reliance on traditional URL filtering databases. It inspects real web traffic, not crawler data, to perform highly accurate detection of new and unknown web attacks. Next, DNS security provides unparalleled protection from DNS-based threats through inline deep learning and predictive analytics that identifies and stops even the most sophisticated DNS-based attacks. DNS security identifies and stops over 20 unique types of DNS attacks and abuse, including ML-based prevention of a new wave of highly sophisticated and evasive command and control and data exfiltration techniques that leverage newer style DNS tunneling techniques that other solutions miss. Next, advanced threat prevention reimagines traditional intrusion prevention with an industry-first application of inline deep learning applied to network traffic in real time to detect and stop unknown and highly evasive command and control traffic for modern and highly customizable hack tools such as Cobalt Strike and others. And with Nova, advanced threat prevention has been further enhanced to prevent zero-day injection-based exploits, including exploits against unknown vulnerabilities, resulting in a 60% increase in zero-day detection attacks that traditional solutions miss. And lastly, our newest security service, Advanced Wildfire, stops zero-day malware like never before. Advanced Wildfire builds upon its custom-hardened hypervisor to introduce several industry-first capabilities, such as intelligent runtime memory analysis, combined with stealthy sandbox observation, to defeat new advanced evasions that modern malware employs to stay hidden. These new capabilities enable Advanced Wildfire to stop 26% more highly evasive zero-day malware than traditional sandboxes. Together, these security capabilities comprise the industry's most advanced protections against today's most evasive web-based attacks. And all of these services are available with PAN-OS 11.0 Nova for both proxy and non-proxy deployments of Palo Alto Networks' next-generation firewalls. With web security capabilities like these, it's clear that this is not just an integrated platform. It is a best-in-class web security solution. Next, let's talk about SaaS. From talking with hundreds of security professionals like you, it's clear that SaaS is changing your business. Your employees are more productive, and they can work and collaborate from anywhere in the world. And this trend is only accelerating, with the typical large enterprise consuming well over 100 sanctioned SaaS applications, not to mention the thousands of SaaS apps being used by employees for so-called shadow IT uses or personal use. Meanwhile, your apps and data are moving to the cloud and into enterprise SaaS applications. And not surprisingly, attackers eager to penetrate networks and get access to sensitive data go where that data is. And increasingly, that data is inside of enterprise SaaS apps. It became clear to us that we needed to take a zero-trust-based approach to SaaS security. When the tenets of zero-trust philosophy are applied to securing SaaS, several observations begin to emerge. First, visibility and control over all SaaS consumption across the enterprise is the only way to effectively implement least privilege access for SaaS. You cannot secure what you cannot see. Second, you need to be able to secure the SaaS apps themselves if you're going to successfully prevent a breach. With zero trust, you cannot assume that SaaS apps are secure by default, because often they're not. Third, you also need to protect all data wherever it may be found, including within modern collaboration apps, where sensitive, unstructured data is shared continuously in real time. And fourth, in order to prevent attacks, you can't assume that all files in your productivity app is safe, or even that authenticated users are who they say they are, or that they're well-intentioned. Continuous inspection of all content and user activities in SaaS is required to truly implement a zero-trust approach for SaaS. Palo Alto Networks' Next-Gen CASB provides the ability to continuously discover and control all SaaS consumption across the enterprise to reduce risk and secure data. ML-powered app discovery and classification provides visibility into more than 55,000 SaaS apps out of the box, while automated SaaS policy recommendations help mitigate risk and safely enable SaaS apps that are in use across the organization. An all-new SaaS Security Posture Management, or SSPM, module ensures that enterprise SaaS apps are protected from dangerous misconfigurations that can put apps and data at risk, with support for over 80 popular enterprise SaaS apps today and growing each month. The seamless integration between our CASB and DLP services with the Next-Gen Firewall provides comprehensive DLP across the network, web, and SaaS, protecting data in motion and at rest across the enterprise. This eliminates the need for dedicated legacy network DLP devices that would traditionally hang off of web proxies via ICAP. A new user behavior anomaly detection discovers compromised accounts and malicious insiders before the damage is done, using behavioral analytics that can identify high-risk activity, including shared credentials, bulk data access, suspicious logins, and more. And just as with all of our other web security services, Next-Gen CASB and data security is available with PAN-OS 11.0 Nova for both proxy and non-proxy deployments of Palo Alto Networks Next-Gen firewalls. Traditional approaches have forced customers to choose, get best-of-breed security through multiple vendors at added cost and complexity, or simplify by selecting integrated security platforms that consolidate functions and control costs. But in today's threat landscape and macro environment, organizations can no longer afford to have to choose between best-of-breed point products and integrated platforms that deliver less effective security. Today, winning security outcomes require both a highly integrated security platform that can also deliver best-in-class security across all users, apps, data, and locations. And this is exactly what PAN-OS 11.0 Nova by Palo Alto Networks delivers. Thank you.
Welcome to AIOps session. I'm Nilima Rustagi, VP of Product Management for Strata's Management and AIOps products. In 2022, we introduced AIOps for Next-Gen Firewall with PAN-OS Nebula launch, and the response we have received from you has been phenomenal. Forrester has said, Palo Alto Networks is recognized as the leader in network security, AI capabilities, and zero trust principles. They have written extensively about the superiority of AIOps, where they mentioned Palo Alto Networks AIOps elegantly translates policy into best practices. On behalf of the entire team, I'm thrilled to share the new innovations in AIOps since then. Organizations are already investing in security. However, there are three challenges. Unless you do not know how to configure with best practices, you're not maximizing your security investment. And you cannot prevent firewall disruptions that are easily preventable. You may also not have a centralized view of all the threats in your network and where exactly are they coming from. The good news is that now we have come up with a solution. To address these challenges, we built AIOps. AIOps goes beyond traditional firewall monitoring to close the alert to remediation loop on Palo Alto Networks firewall issues. The product establishes a unified view of Palo Alto Network firewall infrastructure, so data from every firewall is analyzed to generate security insights for the NOC. With AIOps, our next-gen firewall customers can strengthen security posture with built-in best practices recommendations customized for their deployment. You can also resolve firewall disruptions and keep the firewalls running smoothly, AIOps can predict performance and capacity problems up to 7 days in advance and provides recommendations to resolve. AIOps also provides unified visibility into all threats in your network and how our best-in-class security subscriptions are protecting your network infrastructure. Let's start with the new additions in Strengthen the Security Posture pillar. Customers continue to ask us, how do I ensure that I am using all the features with best practices? Well, guess what? Now we have Adoption Advisor to address these questions. You can analyze the adoption of unused security capabilities and turn them on with best practice recommendations to maximize ROI from security investments. Let's say you have 125 firewalls in your network. You've purchased Advanced Threat Prevention license on all these firewalls, but you've only configured it for 5 firewalls, which means 120 firewalls have the licenses, but they're not turned on. And none of the firewalls are following best practices. AIOps provides the recommended security configurations for firewalls based on your assessed roles. All you need to do is click and follow the guidance to implement best practices. Next addition in this pillar is the Policy Analyzer feature. AIOps Policy Analyzer identifies shadows or any other configuration anomalies that degrade security posture. Shadow rules and policies are a very common problem. Shadowing is when a rule on the bottom is never going to be hit because there is another rule on top that is being hit instead. Let's take an example. A NOC admin wants to ensure no one in marketing has access to the legal apps. They are then presented with a new access request that says Joe in marketing should have access to legal apps. At this point, it's not simple to figure out if this rule should have been even allowed to be added because there's an existing rule that already meets or does not allow that criteria. The only way to check is to check the rules manually, which is obviously tedious. This is why we commonly see shadow rules used in production. The feature conducts in-depth analysis on the config and tells you where there are shadows, redundancies, and other security policy anomalies. We look beyond mere IP addresses and subnets into zones and their interfaces, address groups, to show you the exact problematic rule with suggested next steps. No one else in the market today provides the depth of the information we provide. Let's switch gears and look at how AIOps helps the NetSec admins on the firewall health side. We have introduced several new alerts like flood detection, CVE detection that allow you to take actions immediately. Network admins are concerned about which firewalls in their environments are susceptible to a specific CVE. AIOps leverages customers' firewall telemetry data and feature-based vulnerability signatures to identify which PAN-OS version is best suited for the customer to upgrade based on their enabled features. Let's see this in action. This is an alert on Panorama, which is running a really old version of PAN-OS. AIOps shows the firewalls that need to be patched urgently given a specific vulnerability. This panel shows us all the vulnerabilities detected in this deployment, sorted here by the number of devices that are affected. A critical vulnerability, the log4j from the last year, is listed here. With this capability, you can quickly identify which firewalls in the deployment need to be patched quickly when a new vulnerability is discovered. Finally, AIOps even helps with planning of the upgrades with analysis of what version best suits the firewall. With that, we come to the last use case to help you understand how your security is performing. In the previous AIOps release, we offered visibility into all apps, users, network, wildfire, and DNS activity in one place. We've gone a step further in this release. Let's take a look at the demo. A network security admin's goal is to keep the network secure. This includes monitoring and investigating any threats seen in the network and making required configuration changes to address gaps to tighten security. Additionally, it may also help to see which of these subscriptions are keeping the network secure. In addition to the holistic view we saw just now, Threat Insights also gives you a detailed view into the threat protection summary for the subscriptions across various categories, threats that are seen frequently, which rules are allowing threats. It lets you directly inspect crucially allowed threats that need to be looked into. AIOps takes away the load of sifting through the threat logs and solves it for you in an elegant manner. We have added several features in 2.5, in the free version and in the premium version. If you haven't had a chance to try AIOps, you can sign up for the 90-day trial or access the free AIOps version on your own. My personal recommendation is to take advantage of the 90-day trial to check out all the capabilities. And if you have any questions, ask us on the AIOps live community page posted here. Thank you for your interest in AIOps for Next-Gen Firewall, and please tell your colleagues, with AIOps, you can own your security outcomes.
Cyber attacks are growing more sophisticated. Attackers continue to evolve and adapt to evade defenses. And as threat actors automate attacks to evade detection, zero-day attacks are proliferating. When network security is on the defense, damaging attacks will happen. Can your organization afford to be patient zero? At Palo Alto Networks, we use inline deep learning to provide proactive, real-time protection to our customers. Inline deep learning analyzes live network traffic, identifying threats instantly, using a core technology that is more effective than traditional machine learning at identifying unknown invasive threats with no prior attack knowledge. For inline deep learning to be successful, it requires three components that only Palo Alto Networks can deliver: massive amounts of attack data, cloud-scale computing, and tremendous delivery speed. As a leader in cybersecurity, we continuously collect reams of structured and unstructured threat data from around the globe. Our deep learning engine uses this data to identify patterns and features of attacks that traditional machine learning or human analysts may miss. As more data pours in, the engine grows more effective. Our cutting-edge, cloud-based analysis engine is purpose-built for deep learning, with processing speeds that are 6 times faster than ever before. Inline deep learning runs in the cloud with unlimited capacity and scale. Our lightning-fast global network streams threat verdicts from the cloud to your next-generation firewall, delivering prevention in milliseconds. Near-zero latency means threats are eliminated with no disruptions to your business flow or workforce efficiency. As a core underlying technology built into our network security platforms, inline deep learning can be deployed with a flip of a switch. No complex remote sites or hardware required, and no architecture maintenance on your end. Palo Alto Networks' inline deep learning is fundamentally changing the face of network security, identifying and eliminating evasive threats before they cause harm. Prevent zero-day threats in zero time with Palo Alto Networks. To learn more, contact us today.
"5G networks are rapidly transforming the ways organizations operate and innovate, from employing drones and robots to the expanding use of sensors and virtual reality tools. So it's no surprise that to protect this innovation, 5G security must change and adapt too. Yesterday's security solutions can't keep up with the exponential increase in 5G user traffic buried inside layers of encapsulation and network address translation, NAT. And what you can't see, you can't protect. This lack of visibility can leave you vulnerable to inbound threats such as malware delivery, outbound threats including command and control, C2 communication or data exfiltration, and compromises against 5G network infrastructure like denial of service, DOS attacks. Palo Alto Networks' best-in-class solution, the machine learning-powered next-generation firewall for 5G, can map 5G traffic to individual users and devices based on their mobile identifiers. Deployed at the N3 and N6 interface, Palo Alto Networks' ML-powered NGFW for 5G has full visibility of the user plane traffic, including Layer 7 application data. This gives you deeper granular visibility and more precise policy control of the user plane, mitigating potential breaches. Palo Alto Networks' ML-powered NGFW for 5G allows organizations to go deeper to automatically identify and quarantine infected devices. It also enables you to set more precise security policies that work best for your environment. For example, autonomous mobile robots, AMRs, are allowed to connect with a navigation backend, but not send WhatsApp messages. Today's organizations function in a complex, always-on world, and the threat landscape is 24/7. Exploits, malware, ransomware, spyware, data exfiltration. Palo Alto Networks helps stop all of these advanced Layer 7 threats in real time, keeping your organization ahead of attacks. Go deeper, gain granular visibility, and more precise policy control of the user plane with enterprise-grade security for your 5G networks from Palo Alto Networks.
Hi, my name is Chang, Product Manager for IoT Security. In the next 10 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about how do you secure your enterprise unmanaged and IoT devices using a zero trust approach with our enterprise IoT security product. You might not be aware that over 30% of your devices in your enterprise environment are unmanaged and IoT devices. This number is going up by the day because of digital transformation and the next generation workplace. So this could be your cameras, IP phones, this could be your printers, this could be your next generation building automation systems. This could be your collaboration tools, corporate communication tools. This can be even consumer devices that is increasingly showing up in the enterprise environment. Based on our research, these devices are often vulnerable without a strong security practice. Some top observations, for example, end-of-life operating systems and firmware not up to patch. For example, weak manufacturing default credential and weak HMI interfaces. And also, often they use insecure legacy protocols. Often the traffic is now encrypted. So as a result, the IoT device could be the weakest link of your enterprise network. So it's now surprising to us that we're seeing increasing number of attacks. They're either against targeting these IoT devices or using this weak link as a springboard to penetrate deeper into your enterprise network. These IoT devices are often shadowed to IT and security teams, and they're often overlooked. So it's very important for you to make sure you include the device security as a part of your overall security strategy. There has been a lot of zero trust initiatives. People tend to focus on users, applications. It's quite important to also include the device as part of your zero trust initiative to make sure that you have this part of your network secured. So it can be quite challenging to secure these IoT devices, and often they're shadowed to IT and security teams, and your existing security stack might not work fully. They have blind spot when it comes to IoT device. It's harder to put the agent on many of the IoT devices, and you can't really easily patch them. So some of the top challenges, number one is always been lack of visibility. You can't really secure what you cannot see. Because it's hard to patch, the common approach from a lot of organizations is to segment these IoT devices from other corporate IT devices. And then because of a lack of visibility and some of the static policies, we also see a lot of ineffective segmentation. Even you put a segmentation in place, at the segmentation boundary, the device can still need to talk to external network for normal operation. We don't see a lot of deep security inspection to detect and prevent malicious activities against these vulnerable devices. So these are some of the challenges that we're seeing when it comes to IoT security. So how do we secure these devices? We do think that you can follow the zero trust principle to think about IoT security. It always starts to have a complete, accurate visibility of your devices in your environment, IT, IoT, managed, unmanaged. Then it's about having a deep understanding of the risk factors of these devices, understanding the communication patterns, the behavior of your IoT devices. The good news here is that the IoT device, they're machines designed for specific tasks, so their behavior should be quite predictable. So once you gain that understanding of the device identity, the behavior and behavior baseline, you can actually convert that insight into your segmentation policy, into your least privilege access control policy. Over here, because it's hard to patch these IoT devices, we recommend you to have a contextual segmentation. We recommend you to apply that least privilege access control policy based on the IoT device. This way, you can control access, reduce threat surface, and then prevent lateral movement, secure these IoT devices without disrupting normal operations. Then after that, once you have that in place, we recommend you to have a dynamic device-based policies as opposed to the static IP port-based policies. Once you have that in place, you can drive continuous monitoring in two aspects. One, we call it a behavior verification, trust verification, right? Is this IP address still the printer I detected, or the behavior has changed? I need to apply different policies. A second part is about security inspection to detect and prevent malicious activities such as exploit, malwares, and behavior anomalies. We also talked about blind spot in your existing IT and security stack when it comes to IoT devices. You can also use integration to bring the visibility into your existing security stack to help to make them more effective and also automate your workflow. So at Palo Alto, with our IoT security service, as you can see, we provide insight and automation in every single step of this Zero Trust lifecycle. This is a cloud-based SaaS service you can enable on your NG firewall and the Prisma Access platform. Once you enable it and tune the system, there will be a machine learning-based passive discovery solution that automatically discover and identify all the devices in your environment across IT, IoT, across managed and unmanaged devices. We will build a solid inventory for your devices automatically. And then after that, we provide a lot of insight in terms of what are the risk factors associated to these IoT devices in terms of CVEs, risky postures. We also provide multiple tools for you to easily gain understanding of the communication patterns of your devices and the behavior and behavior baseline of your IoT devices. And then based on that, you have a solid ground information to inform your security strategy, to inform your segmentation, your security controls, and identify gaps. And then the next step, that's where we close the loop using the same platform to turn that visibility and insight into your segmentation, into your firewall policies for that security purpose. So over here, we provide contextual segmentation and the least privilege access control policies for your IoT devices based on the device identity, based on the application, instead of based on static IP, port, and subnet. So we're using elegant policy construct known as device ID and IP ID so that you can write the policy that actually follow the device. With that, we also provide real-time monitoring of the device behavior for trust verification. Again, is this IP address the same printer I detected? Do I see different behavior? Do I need to change the identity? We provide that real-time trust verification continuously. You can also leverage the set of security services available on this platform to detect and prevent malicious activities such as malware, exploit, and behavior anomalies. And then last but not least, we also provide a set of pre-built integration for you to bring that IoT visibility to your existing IT and security stack, such as CMDB, NAC, vulnerability management, and SIEM and SOCs. We also provide very flexible consumption models based on your use case and based on your place in your journey. So we have a 2 license when it comes to enterprise IoT. The enterprise IoT license provides you that foundational capability I just talked about. IoT visibility at scale using machine learning, and then contextual segmentation and the policies using device ID and IP IDs. And then it's about being able to detect and prevent malicious activities. If you do want to work with your device owner to drive patching, risk remediation, and then if you look into some of the advanced capabilities, you can look into the IoT Plus license. Over here, we provide full-blown risk analysis for you in terms of CVE, risky postures, and a set of integrations for you to work with the different teams to drive that security mitigation and risk remediations. We also can convert the behavior baseline into policy recommendation on the firewall side to help you to dramatically reduce the time to create the firewall policies without disrupting normal operations. So to summarize what we just talked about the increasing number of IoT devices in your enterprise environment. These devices present huge risk to you, and this could be weakest link of your network, and it's often overlooked. And it's critical for you to include the device security as part of your security strategy, as part of your zero trust strategy. We talked about how can you use a zero trust framework when you look at the IoT security, how do you secure these IoT devices, and then how you can use our IoT security product to drive insight and automation in every single step of the zero trust lifecycle, and how we can help you to close loop using one platform between visibility, risk understanding, to zero trust policy creation, to threat prevention. Hopefully that's helpful to you. Thank you for your time.
Hi, I'm Heather Robertson, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Firewalls here at Palo Alto Networks. With the release of PAN-OS Nova, we've continued to focus on the trends driving the need for higher performing network security capabilities. With me today is Nick Campagna, Vice President of Product Management for Network Security Products, along with 5 feature-packed 4th generation, next generation firewall appliances, created to address these growing needs from the largest data centers to the smallest branch offices. So Nick, what have you got in store for us today?
Thanks, Heather. I'd like to start with the security challenges our customers are facing today before I go into how we're addressing them. First, the explosion of cloud applications and SaaS have increased the need for high-performance network security to identify and prevent unknown threats at line rate, at the internet edge, and even in the data center for hybrid cloud architectures. Second, encrypted traffic volumes continue to soar. By one set of estimates, 81% of web traffic and 56% of internal traffic is encrypted. That traffic needs to be decrypted to analyze and block potential threats. Customer data and intellectual property at stake, it's important that your network security capabilities can keep up with your performance needs. Third, attacks are getting far more sophisticated and widespread. Nation-state level attack sophistication is now available to all. Palo Alto Networks has always been dedicated to stopping unknown threats across all available threat vectors, and this is where our solutions really shine. Attacks with this level of sophistication are rarely stopped with signature-based prevention capabilities. They require a more advanced approach that enables detection and prevention even for novel or unknown threats. And to address these challenges, we've expanded our portfolio of 4th generation ML-powered NGFWs with the launch of 5 new firewalls. The PA-5440 at the high end, 2 all-new PA-1400 series next-gen firewalls in the mid-range, and the PA-445 and 415 at the low end.
So Nick, let's start off with our largest, the impressive 5440. What can you tell me about the 4th edition to the PA-5400 series?
The PA-5440 is our highest performing 2U appliance with the horsepower necessary to deliver prevention of the most sophisticated threats with on-box and cloud-based inline machine learning. The PA-5440 brings 2 times the threat and decryption performance of the previous 3U PA-5260. That actually means you can replace 6 rack units of 5260s with just 2 rack units of the PA-5440, where extremely high performance is critical. The PA-5440 is ideally suited to secure the data center use case. Within the data center, moving to a zero trust model is crucial. And to do that, you need to employ a policy of least privilege, bringing extensive context around users, devices, applications, and even dynamic context around workloads that move from place to place. Of course, this traffic must also be made safe by preventing threats, known and unknown. The PA-5440 does all of that with over 60 gigabits per second of performance in only a 2U appliance.
Thanks, Nick. So now let's look at the all-new PA-1400 series.
Yeah, the new PA1400 series has two models, the PA1420 and the 1410. And they're both ideally suited for large branches and small campus environments. One use case is the internet edge. And this is all about protecting traffic to and from the internet from sophisticated attacks. It involves decrypting traffic at the edge for complete visibility, preventing the delivery of exploits and unknown malware, stopping sophisticated phishing attacks, and even eliminating the misuse of DNS as a covert command and control or data exfiltration channel. Another use case is campus segmentation. This is where you segment users and devices within the campus to keep threats from moving laterally and to leverage extensive context and a policy of least privilege to make zero trust a reality.
So how does the new 1400 series stack up, and what does it replace?
The 1400 series is meant as an eventual replacement for the PA800 series. It has up to 7 times the session capacity, 5 times the performance over its predecessor. But we didn't stop there. We added multi-gig power over Ethernet ports that support the data rates required for Wi-Fi 6 and 7. And both of these models support up to 8 multi-gig ports that can run up to 5 gigabits per second, which enables higher throughput over copper without rewiring. We also added virtual systems support to ensure successful deployment in those locations where multiple business units exist, with a requirement for separate policy and security administration. And we've also increased the port density on these systems with roughly 10 more ports than the PA800 series.
So I've got to ask the question, why the power over Ethernet for the 1400 series?
Yeah, it's important to understand what PoE brings to the table in a form factor like this. In a word, it's consolidation. With a power budget of 151 watts for PoE, customers can now add power-hungry PoE-enabled devices like Wi-Fi 6 access points without having to wire additional wall outlets or deploy separate PoE-enabled switches.
Customers are going to love that. What about the port density? You mentioned there are 10 extra ports.
Yeah, that's right. The additional ports allow our customers to consolidate network and security infrastructure in those environments where extensive switching capacity isn't required, but where security and performance requirements are elevated in order to provide a flawless end user experience.
And last, but certainly not least, are the PA415 and the PA445.
Yeah, these two new appliances bring the PA400 series family to a total of 6 appliances. And there's some new important features our customers will need for their small offices and retail locations. These systems have up to 3.5 times the performance of the PA220 and also include 4 ports of power over Ethernet and include a fiber port to take advantage of fiber service in the branch or retail location. They also include support for a second optional power supply as well as local on-box logging. The PA445 also supports virtual systems to offer separate administration of multiple business units or departments within the branch.
You've talked about PoE for the PA1400 series. Is this use case similar for the PA415 and the PA445?
Absolutely, Heather. Customers outfitting small offices and branches often have the need to power devices like wireless access points and security cameras, but don't want the added expense and the time delay incurred when hiring an electrician to add electrical outlets. The PA415 and PA445 offer a power budget of 91 watts to drive these devices effectively.
Interesting. And what can you tell me about adding vSys support for the PA445?
Yeah, as with the PA1400 series, we're offering virtual systems here to ensure enterprises can implement administrative separation of policy and provide separate visibility into traffic when there are business units or other logical groupings of assets in the branch. It's important to note that we've added virtual systems support to all of our 4th generation next-gen firewall hardware appliances down to the PA440. You can take a look at the individual data sheets for specifics on each model.
In our remaining minutes here, what would you like to tell our customers about our new appliances in closing?
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize the value. We've brought a powerful package of features for branch and small campus deployments with PoE, fiber, multi-gig, redundant power, on-box logging, and we've combined these with improved port density and higher performance to keep our customers' networks secure. We've also made great strides in terms of performance and efficiency in data center, internet edge, and large campus segmentation use cases with the addition of the PA5440. All these benefits are being delivered through a collection of hardware appliances that offer incredible prevention capabilities across all vectors, leveraging ML-powered security. And lastly, I wanted to mention that for the first time, Palo Alto Networks has stock distribution with these appliances. Certain models are in stock now and ready to ship at a moment's notice. This is really exciting for our channel partners, and it means our customers will get deliveries faster.
Well, there you have it. Our 5 new amazing appliances with all new features, the availability of in-stock appliances, and I bet you're asking, how can I order one? All you have to do is contact your Palo Alto Networks sales rep or your channel partner today, and you can stop zero-day threats in 0 time.
Today has been pretty fascinating. I think we've all learned a lot from both our conversations as well as the announcement and all of the details related to the Nova launch. And, I think it's really interesting in just how intertwined all of this information is, and particularly that attacks and attackers continue to become more efficient and more sophisticated than ever. And in order to effectively defend against this, we really need organizations leveraging the right tools to be able to defend their environments against not only today's most advanced threats, but what we anticipate being next. And I think as part of this, there's no shortage of the need to have effective process and a really simple security infrastructure that organizations can leverage to be the most effective at this. So all that said, Chris, I'd really love to hear your thoughts now after the announcement and after all of the training today.
Yeah, look, I think the approach that Palo Alto Networks is taking here, and a lot of what we heard today, is a smart response to what we're seeing out there, not just in the threat actor space, but in how technology is being used. I think that starts with understanding that the spectrum of threat actors, from sophisticated down to your average day-to-day, is starting to spread, where we're getting more sophisticated actors, while the bottom of the pyramid is both expanding and kind of dropping down a little bit. So we have to be thinking about both ends of that spectrum, and that includes the more sophisticated, the zero-day threats. I mean, there are plenty of examples in the security intelligence space about how certain Chinese actors have increased their use of 0 days over the last year. So we need to be thinking not just about the day-to-day threats, but those more unique, exquisite acts. And so focusing on advanced persistent threats, focusing on 0 days is the exact right strategy. I think at the same time, though, and we talked about this in our earlier on, is simplifying our security strategy. We hear this a lot about simplifying the tech stack. We also want to simplify our security stack and reduce some of the deployments that may be redundant, because I think what we're seeing is that's creating gaps and not necessarily overlaps. And so by simplifying, we have a better picture of what's going on. We have clarity, and then we have, I think, data that's more accessible, and we can derive more insights from it. And then the last thing, again, it's just what every organization needs to be doing, is strengthening your security and resilience posture. We've heard about cyber hygiene for years and years and years, how it's so important to do, but unfortunately the basics are still hard to do. So I think part of what we heard about today was there are some more straightforward and easy ways that we can strengthen our security posture. But look, what this all means is that, yes, it's kind of scary out there, but there are avenues you can take, there are tools you can take that can make life a little bit more secure, if not a lot bit more secure for you, and really enjoyed being part of the conversation today.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. I love how you highlighted at the end, in particular, the different facets. And I think the reality is cybersecurity is a team sport. We are in this to contribute as much as anyone, and really look forward to solving these problems together. So thank you again.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Palo Alto.
Thank you so much to the audience for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and look forward to answering all your questions and working with you in the future.
Thank you, everybody, for joining today. This was an awesome session. Thank you for all the questions that came in. And we are now switching to answering questions live. So if you do have any questions you want to add in for answering live, go ahead and post them in the Q&A. And let me start with some questions that have already come in. And I'll start the first one. I have some experts on the line here who can answer these questions. I'm going to start the first one. It's on web proxy. And the question is, does the web proxy support both implicit and explicit configuration options? Venki, if you're around, you can go ahead and answer this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ganesh. So from a support standpoint, we support explicit proxy. And I believe by implicit, the meaning was for transparent proxy. So we support both modes, explicit as well as transparent proxy with this release of Nova. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, Venki. I have a question on AI ops. Actually, a couple of questions on AI ops. So either Neha, if you can jump on and answer that.
Sure.
There is a question, does AI ops require a license?
Yes, thanks, Ganesh. Yes, so AI ops is in fact available in two versions. There's a free version of the product and a premium version. The free version does not require any licensing, and you can start using it by going to apps.paloaltonetworks.com. All you need to do is just turn on telemetry on your firewall, and it can be used on all hardware firewalls and Panorama that run on PAN-OS 10.0 and above. For the premium version, yes, we do require a license for that, and with the premium version, you'll get all the features that are available. So for that, you need a license, and you can reach out to your SE, or you can sign up for a 90-day trial via one of the links that is provided on the platform. We are also offering a 90-day trial of the premium version of the AI. So if you want, you can also try that version for free and experience all the features.
Thank you, Neha. Thank you. I see a question on threat prevention. So this one's for Jason. How is advanced threat prevention better than what was introduced in the last launch?
That's a good question. Thank you, Ganesh. So with the Nebula release, we introduced advanced threat prevention, which allowed the ability to submit network traffic for analysis, focusing on command and control traffic, especially highly evasive and unknown command and control. With the Nova release, we have introduced the ability to apply the same inline cloud analysis with deep learning against vulnerabilities to find common attack vectors such as SQL injection and command injection. So since this is a cloud service, we continue to provide improvements in tandem with improvements to PAN-OS. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I have a question on Wildfire, which is kind of similar. Actually, a couple of questions, so I'm going to combine them, and I'm going to lob them over to Michael. So the question is, again, what is the difference? What is the difference between advanced Wildfire and Wildfire? And there's also a related question around the 26% claim for malware prevention. Is that 26% more malware compared to other sandbox solutions or compared to previous generation Wildfire?
Great. Thanks for the question. So with Advanced Wildfire, we built a brand new dynamic analysis environment from the ground up. We looked at Wildfire for everything that it does and does well, and we looked at ways of improving that, specifically adding features such as out-of-guest analysis using introspective techniques, memory analysis, inline or real-time memory analysis, and dependency emulation. All features that we wanted to add to help us deal with this kind of newer class or evolving advanced malware threats that we're seeing. As far as the 26% improvement, that's over traditional brick and mortar on-prem sandboxes that you see out there today. Don't have any stats on how advanced wildfire works versus wildfire because they're basically both still part of the same system. So with advanced wildfire, we'll